It's my pleasure to follow these three wonderful presentations and to be very, very thankful for being here, invited to Dharamsala at the behest of His Holiness and the Mind and Life Institute. It really is an honor to be here. I want to begin by mentioning that I come from Honolulu. And in Honolulu, when you meet people traditionally, you touch foreheads lightly and share a breath. I think lots of traditions have something like this. It's a reminder that we are all always, through that shared breath, becoming part of one another. We can't avoid it. And I want to connect that to this theme of entanglement. I want to begin with recalling the two causal insights that occasioned the Buddha's enlightenment. The first was the insight that material presences and sentient presences are karmically entangled. So persistently enacted values and intentions will always bring about consonant patterns of experiential and relational outcomes, but also opportunities. The second insight was that independent individual self-existence is an illusion. None of us arises interdependently. Everything arises interdependently and without self-nature. Ultimately, each of us, and in fact everything, is only what it means for all others. It's relationality all the way down. And it's interesting to recall these. I mean, everybody knows these teachings, core to Buddhist tradition. But I think that one of the things that they very usefully call us to do is to embrace the fact that our entanglement is also without self-nature, and that it includes our entanglement with AI. We have lots of ecological entanglements. Some of those entanglements lead to our strengthening of our vitality. But look at climate change, and our entanglements with our environments are strangling life. Emotionally, we can be entangled in ways that are empathetic and that lead to mutual support. But our emotional entanglements can encage us in hatred and anger and greed. Fortunately, none of these entanglements have any self-nature. They're all karmic opportunities as well as karmic outcomes. So what I want to do is to ask us to think a little bit about our entanglement with artificial intelligence. And I want to begin by suggesting that one of the big confusions that we have is that we tend to reduce AI or technologies in general to the tools that are sort of produced within those technologies. We tend to think a hammer, you can use that to build a building. I was a carpenter in a previous existence in this body form. Or you can use that same hammer to tear a building down. And people tend to think AI is just like that. Whether it harms us as individuals or as humanity is just going to depend on how we use it. Short-sighted. That's not the way it works. Because there's a certain point at which using tools crosses a crucial threshold when the uses of the tool sort of become so pervasive. Take the cell phone. It's so pervasive to use that tool in our society that you cannot avoid the relational consequences of the use of the cell phone, even if you don't use it yourself. Everybody else is using it, so you are being affected by the use of these tools regardless of whether or not you use them. So it seems as if for tools, we have exit rights. I can decide whether to use a tool, when to use a tool, and how to use a tool, for good or for ill. We do not have exit rights from technologies. Technologies are not reducible to their tools. Technologies are relational systems that emerge out of our conduct in the world in much the same way that ecosystems emerge out of species relationships. Once the ecosystem has emerged, it has downward causal constraining pressure on those species. Or think maybe a more mechanical example, transportation infrastructure. Right from the airport up here, a road was washed out, had to take an alternative route. Transportation infrastructures emerge out of our human transportation practices. They don't cause those practices. They emerge out of them. But once the infrastructure is in place, it constrains our practices. And all technologies are like this. We do not have ultimately clear exit rights from them. We are relationally embedded in them. We are not so much the builders of technology as participants in technology. So what's the kind of technology that we're talking about here? AI. People have talked about why that's problematic. Is it really artificial? I'd say no. It's not an artifact. It's a synthetic technology. It's a synthesis of human capabilities and machine capabilities. It's not all machine. It's a synthetic technology. This is synthetic intelligence that we're dealing with. So intelligent technology is just like all other technologies. Human values, human intentions are put into action through these technologies. It amplifies our human intentions and actions. But intelligent technology is unlike any other technology from the past. It is not a passive amplifier of human values and intentions. It is an active participant in that. It's an agential participant in the enacting of human values and intentions. In short, intelligent technology is a karmic accelerator. It takes our values and intentions and enacts them in ways and at scales that we as individual human beings could not do, feeding back to us our own values, our own intentions, and that's really the problem, because we human beings are not very nice. We human beings have lots of conflicting values. If those are being mirrored back to us, that's bad enough. It's bad enough to have mirrored back to us our prejudices, all the kinds of things that lead to what's going on in Gaza or in Ukraine or in Sudan or in any home on the planet where there's domestic violence. Humans are not good models for AI. So when we talk about alignment, we really need to be talking about an attunement process in which humans have a really great responsibility for how this synthesis of the human and the machine is going to evolve over time. To make clear where my biases are, I'm really clearly a critic of what AI can do to us. And I'll give one simple example: the attention economy. Algorithmic systems are now orchestrating people's attention. What does that mean? It means they capture our attention, they hold our attention, and then they direct it for the profit of corporations or individuals or nation states and so on. And if you believe the story of the platform builders, this is going to put us on a glide path into utopia, where everything becomes frictionless, where choice becomes frictionless, where you can get anything you want whenever you want. In fact, the machine systems will anticipate what you want, so you don't even have to make the choice. It'll simply be there for you already. That's, I think, a really dangerous vision for a whole lot of reasons. Because one of the paramitas, the 6 paramitas or the 10, take your pick, core to the paramitas is effort. If you take effort out of the human experience, we make embarking upon and faring well on the Buddhist path, on the Bodhisattva path, very, very difficult. But take this thing about capturing attention. Attention is usually talked about as screen time, as if it's something quantifiable. Anyone who's engaged in Buddhist practice knows attention is a qualitative phenomenon, not a merely quantitative one. So what is happening when our attention is being captured is machines are learning what matters to us. Our attention is an indicator of what matters to us, what is significant to us, what is meaningful for us. And when that system becomes good at predicting and then producing things that we find interesting enough to give up our attention to them, it is manipulating us in a way that is just as precise and invasive as when you use an electron to stimulate the brain and get somebody's hand to go up, and you ask that person, why did their hand go up? And they will tell you, it's because they had to scratch their head. Because nothing in the evolutionary or personal history of humankind can explain how your hand would go up if you didn't intend it. So naturally, you assume responsibility for it. I think this is happening now already in the voting that people are doing around the world, in the shopping that people are doing online, and in the choices people are making on whether or not to ethically debate AI. So my concern is really that if we don't have freedom of attention, we cannot have freedom of intention. And if we don't have freedom of intention, every other freedom is either illusory or impossible to attain. And this includes the freedom to engage in ethical deliberation. If we don't have freedom of intention, ethics is just, it's a manipulative, cognitive, calculative game. It's not about really deliberating the issues. So I see us as now being at an ethical and evolutionary crossroads. Buddhists have often talked about karma using agronomical analogies. They talk about seeds and coming to fruit and the roots of good, intention and all the rest of that. It's all agriculturally based because during the Buddha's lifetime, agriculture was the premier science. We've got new sciences, and we can make use of them to understand our karmic dilemma with AI. How are we going to proceed with this transformative process that is now playing out? It's an evolutionary crossroads. I mention evolution repeatedly because evolutionary theory is undergoing this very interesting transformation. It connects nicely with what has been talked about already on stage by Anat and by Kate and by Keshe. We're in a position now where we know that evolution is not just about random variation and natural selection and survival of the fittest competition, where the only main value is survive. What we're learning is that you cannot explain the evolutionary process on those phenomena alone. They occur, there's no doubt, but they do not explain, especially what happens when you go from inorganic to organic systems, when you go from single-celled to multi-celled organisms, from multi-celled organisms to ecosystems, and especially from biological to cultural evolution. At every one of those phase shifts, what's happening is there's a coherent differentiation of the members that are present that form new kinds of collaborative community with higher order aims than would have been present for any of the individuals. Problem creation. What is the purpose of problem creation? It's not just to survive, it's to enhance relational possibility. The evolutionary record that we witness is the evolution of consciousness mattering. My question is, in our interdependence with AI, our entanglement with it, human intelligence, machine intelligence are creating a fabric. The fabric could be like this silk. The fabric can be pliable, or the fabric can be an armor. On that fabric, are we going to allow to be emblazoned on that, embroidered into it, corporate or national egos? Or maybe the Bodhisattva Guanyin or Avalokiteshvara? I hope the latter. Thank you.